Hello everybody. Tonight what I want to talk about is something that people hear about a lot, and it's something called leaky gut. And what I'm going to be doing is just kind of talking about what leaky gut is and what some of the side effects are, and what you can do about it if you have it, and some of the things that you might be experiencing that might lead you to believe that you actually do have leaky gut. So I have a list of things, and you can find these lists everywhere on the internet. They're pretty accurate. So you might have leaky gut if you're experiencing chronic diarrhea, constipation, gas, or bloating, nutritional deficiencies like anemia, just low iron, low energy, all these types of things that go with it. Poor immune system, so that you're always sick, or you're always fighting something, or you're just never feeling quite like yourself. I'm gonna see if we're showing up on the page here. No, we'll see. So headaches, brain fog, memory loss, and I'm gonna explain why that is. So we'll come back to that one. A lot of fatigue, exhaustion, just not having high energy. Skin rashes, rosacea, acne, eczema, even psoriasis and things are all related, in fact, to the gut. Cravings for carbs and sugars all the time, where you always want these things. Arthritis and joint pain, depression, anxiety, ADHD, ADD. Autoimmune diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, celiac disease, Crohn's, Hashimoto's. So that's a lot of stuff. So let's talk about why. So first off, one of the things that you have to know is when you think about digestion. Digestion is basically the transmission of your body. So you take all this energy in, and it has to convert it to something else. So that's what digestion is. And there's a lining inside of our gastrointestinal system, and it's very thin. It's like this is probably thicker than what it actually is, but it's only a cell or two thick. It's constantly being churned and sloughed off and repaired and rebuilt. And there are areas in this that are permeable. So leaky gut, really essentially what it means is hyper-permeability, or it's too permeable. It's letting things through it that it shouldn't let through it. And there's a couple of reasons for that, and we're going to talk about some of the foods and things that cause this, but there's also other things, and we're being bombarded by more chemicals, toxins, pesticides, herbicides, all of these things in our food supplies, like Roundup and all this other stuff that actually punches holes in our gut. And again, it's very thin. So if you're consuming a food that your body doesn't like, let's say it's grain. So over time, it's going to punch holes straight in this. So you see these little holes, these little punctures. And what happens is, as things penetrate through, they wind up in circulation where they shouldn't be. So whole proteins should never get into your blood supply. They should be broken apart into amino acids. But when you have leaky gut, certain foods like grains and dairy and things, they can escape digestion. They can go through these holes and then into your circulation. So that causes a myriad of symptoms that you might notice. And let's see if we're up there. Okay, we're up there. Good. So that causes a myriad of symptoms that you might notice, but you might not relate to your digestion. So all of these things can be going on without you really understanding why and what is happening. So we're going to talk about it a little bit, and what the main culprits are. So we'll go with that first, because the main culprit of leaky gut is food. So the single biggest thing you consume on a day-to-day basis is food. You're eating, meals multiple times per day. You're drinking water. And so certain foods, if you're sensitive to them, let's say you're sensitive to dairy products, and you're eating, milk, cheese, ice cream, yogurt, whatever it is, multiple times per day. Every time you do that, you're exposing your GI tract to something that it finds harmful. Now, one of the things we've known now is that grains, celiac patients among others, when they consume grain, it opens up something in the lining, in this gut lining called the tight junction. And it actually, the gut will actually create a space for things to penetrate through. So it's opening up these tight junctions. It's called zonulin, is one of the proteins involved. It actually allows this stuff to penetrate right into the blood supply. And then you get all this immune reactivity because whole proteins are not supposed to slip into your blood. Once they slip into your blood, your immune system sees them as a foreign invader and mounts an attack. And that attack could be systemic in the sense of, let's say you have a twin, and he goes to a bar and starts a problem, and then you come in later and they go, oh, there he is. Well, it wasn't you, but a guy looked just like you, and so they bustle you out of the club and they say, don't come back, whatever. Same thing happens inside your body. So you could have foods escaping into your blood supply, and those source carrier proteins, those outside proteins, look like other proteins in your body. So when it goes to start to attack one, it may attack the other. That protein may wind up in your gastrointestinal lining. It might be in your brain, the myelin in your brain. It might be in the surface of your thyroid. It might cause Hashimoto's. It might be the surface of your joints. It might be rheumatoid arthritis. It might be your skin. It might be psoriasis or eczema. It's all these different things. So this membrane is a big part of how healthy you are, and how healthy this membrane is, or how permeable it is, can have rather systemic effects on your health. So let's talk about foods again. So one of the chief categories of things that bother people are what's called lectins. And lectins are basically proteins in foods, especially plant-based foods, that they are protective. They're to protect the plant from being eaten. So lectins can cause a lot of reactivity in the gut. Dairy products cause a lot of reactivity in the gut. So when I test people, and I recommend that you investigate these tests, I have a link. I'll put a link to a site where you can get a food sensitivity test. When I test people, the single biggest thing that comes up in most cases is people are sensitive to dairy products. And they're always shocked. They go, oh, I can eat dairy products. It doesn't seem to bother me. It might bother you 72 hours later. So you might not even identify with it. And then, sometime later, you notice, oh, my back hurts, or I have a headache, or I'm breaking out. And you can't link those two things together because it doesn't always happen at exactly the same. It's not an instantaneous reaction. It's a delayed reaction. And like I said, it can be 48, 72, 96 hours after you've consumed something. So it's very deceiving. Grains. So grains are a big part of this outbreak of leaky gut because we're eating grains that are highly modified and then just doused, absolutely covered in pesticides, herbicides, and all these other things that are new to our bodies. A few hundred years is a blink of an eye. We're not used to that. So that can have a pretty significant effect on our health. And then the other thing that causes leaky gut are infections. So you may have heard of something called small intestine bacterial overgrowth. Basically what happens there is you get bacteria climbing up out of the small intestine into the stomach. The reason that happens, the way it starts is somebody probably is taking an acid blocking drug to begin with, and they're losing that strong acid gradient in the stomach that washes and sterilizes everything down. So bacteria start to creep up, and they might even be probiotic bacteria. They might not even be bad bacteria, but they don't belong there, and so they cause a problem. Another bacteria infection is called H. pylori, and that one doesn't belong there. And again, in my opinion, the number one reason why those two things happen is because they have low stomach acid, or they're taking medication to suppress stomach acid, which you should not do unless you're in a very severe state. Candida infections also cause leaky gut, as do parasites. And so now you may think, oh, well, people don't have parasites anymore. There are places where people do have parasites. And then you go like to an industrialized nation in the United States or Great Britain or somewhere, and they say, oh, people don't have parasites. Yes, they do. So they have parasites, and not only do they have parasites, but parasites are also carriers for other types of infections. For example, when people have get Lyme disease from an infected insect, that insect is a parasite in a sense, and it is infected with Lyme's disease. Lyme's disease is a little spirochete called Borrelia burgdorferi, and when the tick bites you, it kind of regurgitates the contents of its guts back up into you and infects you with that kind of the parasite of the parasite. So we know that these things exist, and we know that they're on the rise. They're not less frequent now, they're more frequent now. So also now we want to go into toxins. What toxins cause leaky gut? Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. This is aspirin and ibuprofen. This is, which one they use all the time too? It's like diclofenac. It's, oh gosh, what's the, naproxen is one. These drugs, they change the lining of your GI tract. And so they cause, also in addition to leaky gut, they can also cause ulcers. They can cause a variety of other things. Steroids, so this could be birth control pills. This could be remnants of stuff in your water. This could be prednisone that you might be taking. They also cause leaky gut. Antibiotics, so everybody knows that antibiotics do bad things to your natural flora. What they don't know and what they don't realize is the effect of an antibiotic can last for years. It's not just, oh, I took it, I got better, and now I'm fine. No, that can alter your gut flora for years. It actually changes the gut flora, the makeup of the gut flora. So after an antibiotic, you should really be dedicated to try to repopulate your gut with more healthy microbes. And so you could take probiotics. I'm very on the fence with probiotics. At times I was more favorable. Now I just prefer food-based solutions. And if you have to take probiotics, I recommend soil-based probiotics. Antihistamines. Again, these are medications that people use very, very commonly, but they don't think about what are the far-reaching effects. So if I have the sniffles, I take Benadryl, or I do this, or they do that. And that has an effect on your body and your gut lining. So we're trying to keep a balance, and then when that happens, we can get thrown off, and it can affect our health. And then the biggest category, again, I think, is the acid blockers. Acid blockers and the antibiotics are probably the single two biggest offenders here, with NSAIDs coming up next, because we see all the gut problems from people who take NSAIDs. Other toxins, which we don't really talk about a lot, and people think it's kind of crazy, but are heavy metals, mercury, cadmium, lead, aluminum. Those things you pick up in your environment. If you eat a lot of dark chocolate, for example, you'll see this in the news now. There's high cadmium amounts in dark chocolate. So if you're eating dark chocolate, have it look and see and check the list to make sure it's not a high metal containing form of chocolate, because you could actually be slightly poisoning yourself by eating all that dark chocolate. And I really like dark chocolate, so it's a major bummer to me too. It's one of my go-to snacks. And then the other thing is stress. So if you're under stress, it doesn't cause the problem, it makes every problem worse. So if you're stressed, you're not sleeping well, you have poor dietary habits, you're just not functioning at your best, you're gonna be way more susceptible to leaky gut as well. So what do we do to get better? So the first part is we have to get rid of inflammation. I have a #1 thing that does this. It is called a fast. So it costs you absolutely $0 to stop eating. And so I recommend plenty of water with some electrolytes, and you just hydrate and let your body heal. The average time it'll take to regenerate that gut lining is 3 to 5 days or so. So if you can do a water fast for 3 to 5 days, you're gonna be so much healthier at the end of that 3 to 5 days because you've rebuilt your gut lining. And now, so what you've got now is a regenerated gut. You're ready to start to heal again. So we've got to think about, again, how important this lining is. It's separating. It's the wall of defense between self and not self. So all the food that you're eating, it's being separated by this gut, okay? So one of the main trigger foods now we're going to talk about, we talked a little bit about grains, but gluten, and it's a lectin, and that's a big problem. Sugar. So eating lots of sugar, sugar in and of itself may not be that bad, but it feeds things like candida, etc., that do bad things to you. So sugar is inflammatory in nature, turns on some of the inflammatory genes. So it turns on this engine that starts up the inflammatory gene process. And we want to avoid that. Hydrogenated oils. This is the crap that you see in the grocery store. It's in clear bottles. So this is absolutely terrible. So first off, any oil you would consume, if it's going to be in glass, it needs to be in dark colored glass, either green or brown. There's a couple reasons for that. The first is oils are susceptible to both heat and light. So if you're going to get an oil and you're going to put it in something, put it in dark and then keep it shaded and keep it cool. And that'll stop it from going rancid. The stuff that you find on the shelf, so the baddies, soybean, canola, corn oil, cottonseed oil, all these things, it's junk. Everybody asks me, oh, what about canola? Junk. Don't eat that. It's not good for you. And it's also a high unsaturated fat, which means that when these bonds are unsaturated, it's much more susceptible to heat and light than a saturated fat. So you're actually better using monounsaturated fats like olive oil, avocado oil, or more saturated fats like coconut oil, butter, ghee. These are way better oils. I know everybody thinks, oh, saturated fat is bad for me. It's a different lecture, but it's not. It's been just completely thought about wrong and stated wrong. But the very unsaturated, polyunsaturated fatty acids that you see on these commercial shelves in the grocery stores and stuff, don't eat those things. Those are toxic. So you don't eat that. You keep away from that. Fast foods and packaged foods. Obviously, we know fast foods, packaged foods are not good. We eat them because of convenience. Some people have been lured into the idea that these things are actually good. So, oh, I ate a cereal bar, or I ate a packaged yogurt, or I grabbed some juice along the way. These things are rubbish. They're not good for you. Don't eat them, and don't give them to your kids. And then you got to watch for like the specific things. So, for example, when I do food sensitivity testing, I look and see what is good for you. So, for example, I like broccoli. I eat broccoli probably 4 or 5 times a week. If I were sensitive to broccoli, even though broccoli is a great healthy food, it has lots of things like indole-3 carbinol and diindolylmethane and sulforaphane and all these good healthy things. If I'm sensitive to broccoli, broccoli is not good for me. So if I'm sensitive to it, I don't eat it. So in my food sensitivity test, I came back sensitive for garlic and almonds and dairy, which I knew, and pineapple and a couple other things. So guess what? I don't eat those things. And I really like garlic. I'm Italian. I just grew up eating it, but I really don't eat it very much. One thing that happens too is you can develop a sensitivity to something at a point in your life that you didn't have it before. And I'll give you a classic example. Red pepper flakes. My entire life, I ate red pepper flakes on foods. So I would put that on my food. I loved it. I loved the spice. And then I was on a trip. I took my son to a camp. It was a wrestling camp. And we went somewhere and I had something that had red pepper flakes and made me sick. And I was like, wow. And then I said, well, maybe it wasn't that. Maybe it was something else. And so I ate it again on some food and it just absolutely destroyed my guts. So red pepper flakes for me are now poison They might not have been for the first 45, 6, 7 years of my life, but they are now, and I don't eat them. So get a good food sensitivity test. Find out if you're sensitive to things, if you're consuming things you're sensitive to. All right, so here's now the things you can do. Like I said, the first thing you can do to get well is to just stop eating. This, I get more resistance to this than anything. So you will not die if you miss a meal. You will not die if you miss 2 days of meals, 3 days of meals, 4 days of meals, 5 days of meals. I've gone on 5-day fasts. I've gone on 7-day fasts. I have people, I got a guy in my clinic, he went on a 30-day fast. He didn't die. What he did was he lost lots and lots of body fat and lots of weight. Do I recommend you go on a 30-day fast? No. But 3 days is perfect amount of time to let your digestive system heal. So if you have any type of chronic health problem, the single best thing, and this goes through the dawn of time, all the ancient physicians, Galen and all these other ones, they would say, you need to fast. Because when you're not eating, you're allowing your body to heal. So it doesn't have to process all of these things that you're putting in it. The energy of digestion, which is significant, is turned into healing. So you get this thing called apoptosis, and you get all these different phenomena that are involved with your body regenerating. So that's what you want. You want to allow your body to heal. So I'm a huge fan for everything. For almost every chronic health condition, going on a fast. First thing I'll say to do. Costs you exactly zero money. In fact, it saves you money because you're not buying food. Drink bone broth. You can make this yourself. You can get, animal bones from anywhere. You put it in water with some salt, some good sea salt or pink salt. You throw some vegetables there and you let that cook. That's going to liberate all of those healthy proteins and things that your GI tract, that the lining of your gut will use, glutamine among others, to help repair, restore itself. Also little bits of fats that are very efficacious in healing. So that's good too. Eating fermented food. So I have this. I drink this every day. This is actually my own. I make my own kombucha. I drink that a little bit each day. Not a lot, but just a little bit. And I'm getting a healthy organic acids, but also those probiotic organisms that help to keep my gut repopulated all the time. That's the thing too. You can take something, you can eat something, but if you're not doing it frequently enough, it just gets pushed through. So you need to do it with enough frequency that you have a healthy gut. And that's it. The other thing now, easy. This one's easy. Nobody resists this one. Eat berries, especially things like blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, dark colored berries. They have lots of proanthocyanins. They are very probiotic in the sense of they feed the organisms that heal your gut. So eat berries. They're excellent for you. Don't eat the things you're sensitive to. So if you know you can't drink milk or you can't have that, don't eat protein shakes and don't have ice cream and things. They're just going to set you back. If you're going to take probiotics, look for soil-based probiotics. I think I said this a little earlier. Soil-based probiotics, they're a little better for you, and avoid the probiotics that cause histamine raises. And some people are very sensitive to these. So you can't, probiotics aren't innocuous for everybody. Some people take them and they react very poorly and they go, oh, that made me feel bad. This lactobacillus, whatever, made me feel bad. They're probably very sensitive to histamines, and so what that did was that aggravated them. There's a supplement, it's an amino acid called L-glutamine, and L-glutamine is used abundantly in your gastrointestinal system. So you can take that in, and what's going to happen is it's going to help to heal, repair, restore. And then another thing. So there's a little test. I have a YouTube video on it somewhere. I will try to remember to link it here. But there's a test you can do to see if you have adequate stomach acidity. Basically, the test is very simple. You take 8 ounces of water, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and as soon as you get up in the morning, you drink that down. And you set a timer. And in 5 minutes, if you don't have some significant belching or rifting, then your stomach acidity is not up to snuff. There are things you can do to boost that acidity. And so I'm gonna go on a tangent here, and this is one of my favorite tangents to go on, but too many people are taking proton pump inhibitors, H2 agonists and all that, antagonists, and they're blocking their stomach acidity. Your stomach acidity is there to save your life. It sterilizes the contents of your gut. It breaks down proteins into their amino acids, so you don't get undigested protein getting down into your small intestine. It's getting cleaved apart. The acid cleaves apart the bonds in the protein, so you got separate amino acids, not whole proteins. And it helps your minerals get absorbed. So if you take an acid and you put it on, calcium, it breaks the bonds apart and it makes that calcium absorbable. Same with other minerals like magnesium, like zinc. So you need acid to do that. It sterilizes the contents of your belly in the sense that, so if you eat something that has bacteria in it, the acid in your stomach kills the bacteria. If it has viral particles, it kills the virus. If it has fungus, it kills that. And so when the acid balance gets off, when you start to have not enough acid, then you'll notice that people are getting more infections, more gastrointestinal system issues, more things like candida, yeast, those types of things, because there's not enough acid. The acid gradient isn't there. So you need the stomach acid. There are specific things we do to enhance acid phase digestion. One of the other things that happens with the acid is, if you get adequate acid, the little valve on the top of your stomach closes. If there's not enough acid, the valve stays open. So it seems very counterintuitive, but low stomach acidity causes heartburn. And this is the one thing that people don't get. So as you age, your stomach acidity goes down. So you have less acid in your stomach, and the valve that stops your esophagus, from your esophagus to your stomach, it stays open, and acid will spill up on there. Even the tiniest little bit will spill up on your esophagus, and you will get heartburn. And so the medical approach is to take all the acid away. Well, that's bad, because then you can't sterilize, you can't assimilate your minerals, you can't break down your proteins, and it causes dysbiosis in other places. It's a bad approach. Really what we want to do is get ideal acidity, and so there's some ways of doing that. But the acid also initiates, so when the valve closes, everything gets pushed down, and then it initiates what's called enzyme phase digestion. That's when your gallbladder, your pancreas, and your liver all start to do their job. So they're putting out enzymes like proteases, lipases that break down fats, and amylases that break down carbohydrates, and then the gallbladder is releasing bile, which is a surfactant. It breaks down fats very effectively and helps liberate your fat-soluble nutrients. So there's a symphony going on. People are playing the wrong notes in different places. They're eating the wrong foods, they're doing things wrong, and they're getting all of these gastrointestinal problems. And if you break it down, if you understand what is actually happening and you break it down, it's fixable. So leaky gut is fixable. All GERD is fixable. All these other things are fixable. And then the chronic leaky gut causes autoimmune disease. So if you have RA, if you have lupus, if you have Hashimoto's, if you have MS, if you have all these other things, it's immune. Those are immune diseases first. So let's say you have lupus and your kidneys are under attack. And so they treat your kidney. But the problem is your immune system is attacking your kidney. There's proteins escaping into your blood supply that are activating your immune system. And that guy looks like that guy, and so boom, pretty soon you have, the cells of the kidney are getting attacked. If you have MS, it's the myelin in your brain and your nervous system that's getting attacked. If it's RA, it's the synovial lining in your joints that's getting attacked. So a lot of this starts in the gut. Sure, genetics matter. And I have a whole illustration of how autoimmune diseases happen. Genetics matter, but genes basically are coded on or off to make proteins or not make proteins. And there's epigenetic switches. There's things that you do, your habits, your behaviors that turn genes on or turn genes off. So like if you have celiac disease, they've done studies where people have had both alleles of celiac disease, but they don't have celiac disease. They have both genes there, but the genes aren't on. So therefore, they don't have celiac disease, although they have the genetic capacity to develop it if something happens. So there's a lot of stuff above the gene. So here's the gene and here's the stuff above it. That's called epigenetics. So we know that our habits and behaviors actually do matter, and they have an enormous impact on our health. So that's it. Any questions, anything like that on here, I'll be happy to answer. The video kind of went a little longer than what happens, but this is pretty typical for me. I like to talk. But if you got value from this, please share it. Don't make me a secret, you know, please share it. If you're in this group, share it. Invite other people. Ask questions, like it. I'm gonna put it on YouTube as well. I have a YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed over there, please go over there and subscribe too, because the more people that subscribe, the more people get to see this stuff. And my goal is to try to help people get well and get healthy. And that's it for tonight. I'm gonna wrap it up. Again, anything you have about this topic, leave it below and we'll talk about it. Thanks, bye.